Right now at 6, more than 1 billion Catholics around the world mourn the death of Pope Francis. How those in the Northwest are reacting tonight.
And I think Pope Francis emphasized mercy, openness of heart, acceptance.
Plus, a second try for prosecutors in the murder trial of an Uber driver they say was fueled by road rage. Then, rallying support for a caregiver who was seriously hurt, authorities say, by a driver who apparently lost control.
This is really, couldn't have happened at a worse time.
And later in sports, the former Oregon hoop star and NBA champion who's now made the shortlist for one of the league's most prestigious awards. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Mulco. We begin tonight with Catholics around the globe in mourning after the death of Pope Francis at the age of 88. The pontiff, the first from Latin America, made his final public appearance on Easter Sunday and died early this morning, the Vatican says, of a stroke and heart failure. Let's bring in Libby Dowsett live on the University of Portland campus with how Catholics here are reacting to Pope Francis's impact on the church and beyond. Libby?
Well, David, the bells tolled just like they are right now, just before noon, as students and people on campus made their way into Mass. Now, students and people at Catholic Charities telling us they loved how open this Pope was. He didn't care where you came from, what you stood for. He just wanted everyone to be one. Students at University of Portland hear news of the Pope's passing by tolling bells and messages on Instagram.
In this day and age, it was very refreshing to see someone be so committed to inclusivity.
I just enjoyed his perspective on wanting to help all sorts of different people.
Catholics showing up at the University Chapel for noon Mass to remember the Pope.
He appeared to be healthier than he had been. He was out there with people, and I was totally shocked by it, and I'm going to miss him.
I have been impressed seeing him on the ground with people, listening to what they have experienced and responding to them as a good pastor.
It was that compassion, church leaders say, set Pope Francis apart.
There's no doubt that he reached out to prisoners and immigrants and refugees and world leaders and said, you have a responsibility to care for all people.
Pope Francis, remembered by Catholic Charities leaders as a humble man.
He didn't want to be thought of as a great and powerful person, but he wasn't afraid to speak truth to great and powerful people.
The Pope making it clear to world leaders, including U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, his support for treating immigrants with respect and respecting their rights.
And we knew right away that this was a man who was going to show to us the real humanity of migrants, to tell their stories. And I think Pope Francis emphasized mercy, openness of heart, acceptance. But he was he called himself a son of the church. He was not going to do something really off the rails.
Ed Lamois, remembering the Pope creating a new department at the Vatican to look at the whole scope of what it takes to help people thrive as humans.
He really cared. He wasn't afraid to pick up a baby and kiss him. He wasn't afraid to touch people. He wasn't afraid to comfort somebody.
And back here with bells tolling still in honor of the Pope, people remembering him as a loving man, a gentle giant, and people from Catholic Charities saying he did have some concerns about us here in the U.S. abusing our privilege and our government not treating everyone equally. David, back to you.
Empathy and compassion. Libby Dowsett at the University of Portland this evening. Thank you, Libby. If you're looking for more coverage on the death of the pontiff, we have two specials about his life and tenure right now on our TV app. It is KGW+. They're called Remembering Pope Francis and Tributes to Honor Pope Francis. They air at 7:30 tonight. They'll also be available anytime on demand, again, on KGW+. In your headlines this evening, lawmakers in Salem are mourning the loss of one of their own, State Senator Aaron Woods, who died over the weekend. The former tech executive was elected in 2022 and represented District 13 that includes Tigard, Wilsonville, Sherwood, and part of Yamhill County. Among his accomplishments, helping pass a law regulating the use of AI in political ads. Woods was diagnosed with cancer in 2023 and took a leave of absence last month to undergo treatment out of state. He was 75 years old. Commissioners from the 3 counties covered by the district will appoint a successor to finish out his term. In Washington, the association that oversees school athletics voted down 2 amendments today that would have changed its policy on transgender girls competing in sports. One proposal would have banned transgender girls from participating in girls' sports altogether. The other would have created a 3rd sports division for transgender students. Now, even if those proposals had passed, the WIAA, that's the association there, says state law would have prevented them from taking effect. State law says students have the right to compete in sports consistent with their gender identity. Oregon's May election is less than a month away now, with time running out to get registered to vote. There are a number of local issues on the special ballot. They include elections to school districts, to education service district boards, rural fire and flood safety boards, and assorted bonds and levies. You have until next Tuesday, that's April 29th, to register or update your address. You can head to OregonVotes.gov for more. For those of you in Southwest Washington, by the way, your special election is tomorrow. You can register the same day there if you're still hoping to cast your ballot. And we've got a bit of a traffic alert for Portland drivers as the Markham Bridge's turn for overnight closures as part of its every other year inspection by ODOT. So what does that mean? Starting tonight, the bridge will be fully shut down between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. the next morning. There'll also be lane closures on approaches to the bridge, so I-405 like your best alternate to get around that overnight. ODOT expects work to wrap up by early Friday morning. Matt?
Well, we're going to have good weather until roughly early Friday morning as well. It's going to clear off overnight tonight. Right now, you see we still have clouds out there. 61, we're a little bit below average today, but still pretty good. We're running 4, 5, 6 degrees warmer than we were at this time yesterday. So we've warmed up a bit. The clouds already showing signs of clearing out, both on the satellite and out the window. If you look up, you've seen a lot more blue than we did earlier in the day. And tomorrow, it's all clear. It's going to be cool in the morning, down to 40 in Portland, 56 at noontime, then 65 our eventual high, which is a little bit above average. So we flipped the script on that one. Now, with the cold night on the way, we've got a frost advisory all around the metro area, but not including the metro area. The city just holds in the heat a little bit better, so we don't have to worry about frost in the close-in neighborhoods. But if you're out in Washington County, Clackamas County, up to the north of, say, Battleground and Clark County, then it will get frosty overnight tonight. So a couple of cold nights on the way, but warm days, and we'll talk about the potential for showers and thunderstorms at the end of the week, David.
Sounds like a lot to talk about. Thanks, Matt. In an update tonight, jury selection is underway in the retrial of an Uber driver accused of shooting and killing one man and injuring another in a road rage incident. That's after a judge declared a mistrial last December after that jury could not reach a unanimous decision. We want to bring in Devin Haskins live at the courthouse downtown. So, Devin, walk us through what the jury will hear in the case.
Well, during the trial and since his arrest, Jeffrey Hammond has maintained his innocence and said that what he did was in self-defense. Prosecutors will try to prove that what Hammond did went beyond self-defense in the shooting death of one man and the shooting injury of another. He now faces charges of murder and attempted murder, which is what he faced in the first trial. This new jury will try and hear this case all over again. Now, we want to show you some video, some of which depicts graphic violence. A deadlocked jury during the first trial for Portland Uber driver Jeffrey Hammond. It was in October of 2023. Security cameras show Hammond's car pull over to the side of the road outside the Moxie Hotel in Portland and wait for a fare. His car partially protrudes into a lane of traffic. A truck driven by Ryan Martin passes Hammond's car. Martin gets out and confronts Hammond, and about 13 seconds later, Martin drops to the ground. Hammond was accused of shooting Martin. Martin died from his injuries. Witnesses say the two were shouting before the shooting. Then a few minutes later, a man pulls out his phone to start recording. Hammond shoots at him, hitting him in the legs and injures him. That man survived.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
It was right by Jake's. I had somebody road rage me and come out of their car.
Hammond drove away calling 911 before turning himself in. In his interview with detectives, he claimed self-defense, saying Martin was threatening him and the other man could have had a weapon.
When you decided to fire the shot, what sort of feelings were you having at that point? Tell me about what's going through your head so I can get a better understanding.
I didn't even really think about it. It was just that, like, he was right there. He wasn't leaving me alone. I was intimidated, and that was kind of it.
In December, prosecutors laid out their case, trying to convince a Multnomah County jury that Hammond was guilty of murder and attempted murder. And after 3 days of deliberations, the jury deadlocked.
I thought it was pretty clear that the charges, he should be guilty on all of them.
KGW talked with Martine Freiberger, a juror on the first trial, who says it was one juror who held on to their belief that Hammond was not guilty on those 2 charges.
In a very slim way, I could see what they were saying, but I did not agree. I felt that a guilty verdict would have been the right thing.
The jury found Hammond guilty of assault and unlawful use of a firearm. The prosecution now trying Hammond for a second time for murder and attempted murder. This retrial should last about 2 weeks, the court says. Jury selection should wrap up in the morning, with opening statements starting right after that. David?
Devin Haskins with the update downtown. Thank you, Devin. Well, for another big sell-off today on Wall Street, fueled in part by President Trump's criticism of Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell and ongoing uncertainty over tariffs. The Dow closing nearly 1,000 points down. The Nasdaq and S&P also falling more than 2%. Their economists pointing to 2 growing concerns they say as well: sinking prices of U.S. government bonds, which have traditionally been seen as a safe haven, and the sliding value of the U.S. dollar. Meanwhile, new tonight, a federal judge in Eugene has ordered the Trump administration to restore the visas of 2 international students who are studying in Oregon. The ACLU sued on behalf of an Oregon State PhD student from Mexico and a British graduate student at the University of Oregon, claiming their visas were terminated without notice or explanation. The Oregonian reporting the judge questioned federal lawyers about the regulations they used to justify these terminations. Their response: the students had not been irreparably harmed because a final decision on their status has not yet been issued. The judge here disagreed and blocked the students' deportation from the country for 2 weeks while their status is restored. We'll keep you posted there. Speaking of people who have been deported, today Oregon Congresswoman Maxine Dexter is in El Salvador with other House Democrats to demand the release of this Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The White House admitting it deported Abrego Garcia last month by mistake, though still alleges without evidence he's a member of the MS-13 gang. His wife and attorney say that is simply not true. Here's some of what Congresswoman Dexter told NBC News.
We all should be terrified by the idea that anyone could be taken and put away in another country and then abstain from saying that they have any accountability.
We expect to hear more from Congresswoman Dexter when she returns to Portland tomorrow. Meanwhile, the White House has essentially refused to comply with the Supreme Court order to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return to the U.S. The presidents of both countries saying they do not have the authority.